Harry, are you a misogynist?
I like to think so.
But seriously, would you class yourself as a misogynist?
I think the word, like so many others, has lost a lot of its meaning.
Exactly. I dislike the word misogyny because, as you said, it's basically meaningless now. Misogyny today means anything a woman doesn't like now, tomorrow, yesterday, in any country, in any time frame. That's misogyny. Where if you look at the root word of the root of the word misogyny from the Greek, it means hatred of women. I've never met a man yet who hates women. I've met men who hate individual women, and I know women who hate individual men, but I've never met a man who hates all women.
It's trying to think if I've met anybody who hates all women, and I can't think of
no,
one.
because those people don't exist. So there is no hatred of women from men. So misogyny started changing from the early 2000s. The Oxford Dictionary changed the definition of misogyny to hatred or dislike or prejudice against women. So misogyny now is just another word for sexism. And the reason why we don't use the word sex, well, the reason why some women don't use the word sexism anymore is because men started using it against women. That's a bit sexist, saying I can't do this, I can't do that. That's sexist. You're being sexist against a man. And some feminists went, oh, we don't like our weapon being used against us. We need a new weapon. And the new weapon was misogyny because it's hatred of women. Men can't start using that word against us. We can use misandrist, but even less people understand what that word means.
You say that nobody really cares.
Men don't care. And that is the real issue. Men just take it on the chin and go, oh, just get on with life. So I'm glad I'm talking about this today because obviously I'm back on Twitter from this morning. And last year, when I was thinking about misogyny, I thought, what do people think about that? So I tweeted out last year and I tweeted, misogyny does not exist. Just those words. And thought, right, let's see what response I get. I got a lot of response. And all the response from women was, yes, it does exist. Even from very sensible women who I follow, who I agree with the vast majority of the time.
You were purposefully poking the hornet's nest with that one.
Yes. and hence why I probably got kicked off in the first place. And I wanted to see why people thought misogyny exists, because they would understand the definition of the word. And so I asked them, I put another tweet following that saying, can you give me some evidence of misogyny around the world? Just give me some evidence of misogyny, because I don't see it anywhere. And then I was bombarded again. So we got some replies such as the Taliban, burning witches in medieval England, sexual assaults, and even serial killers. And I thought, this is a bit extreme. So I replied to them all. So the Taliban, let me make this perfectly clear for someone who does not support the Taliban. The Taliban do not hate women. The Taliban are trying to protect women in a medieval, crazy type of way. That's why they make them wear burqas. They're doing it because they think this is protecting them from male gaze, from sexual assault.
Well, yeah, that's the argument I've always heard, that if, from their perspective,
yes,
in their countries, if the women don't cover up the way that they do, then they will just be sexually assaulted and raped in the street.
Exactly.
It's very strange.
It's backwards.
Indicative of an incredibly different culture to ours, certainly. Yeah. But I can see the warped logic in where they're coming from.
Me too. And even though I disagree with it, and it is a backwards culture, even I can see they don't hate their women. They're trying to protect them. Witch burning trials of medieval Europe. What nobody knows is 25% of all the witches burnt to death were men. This wasn't 100% women. 25% who were burnt to death were men who were accused of being witches. In some countries in Europe, accusations of being a witch was something like 80-90% of the accusations were against men. So if this was misogyny, men weren't doing a very good job about this because we were burning ourselves to death and being accused.
I don't know too much about it, and I don't want to comment too hard on it, because most of what I learned about the witch burning trials was what I learned in secondary school. And to be honest, now looking back, I can't trust much of what I learned in secondary school. But I do know that it was mainly just, it wasn't just accusing women and people for the sake of accusing them for being women. A lot of it was down to interpersonal conflicts that were going on, and a lot of it also was down to people pointing to people who were trying to sow discord within a community. So obviously you can't justify the fact that people got burned off the back of it, but it wasn't because they just hated women. They didn't just go, we want to burn some women today. It was maybe somebody's done something in the community that's trying to tear us all apart. She must be doing it because she's a witch. It's nothing to do with she's just a woman.
It was also, I want your land. I'm going to accuse
certainly.
you of being a witch. You're going to get burnt, and I'll buy your land at auction really cheap. There was also, I mean, humans are complicated and we can be nasty creatures. There was lots of things in play during the medieval witch burning. The point was, it wasn't misogyny. It wasn't just picking on women. Sexual assault. Sexual assault isn't driven by a hatred of women. It's driven by animalistic lust. It's wrong. And I would have most people who commit sexual assault hung. So again, I'm not sticking up for men at all on sexual assault. We need to deal with those men harshly. But we lie to ourselves and lie to the community when we're saying men attack women because they hate them.
Well, I think from whenever I've seen people talking about this, they try to use the argument of rape is a tool used by men to assert power over women because it allows them to make the argument, the classic one that I don't hear as much anymore, but I remember it being big maybe in 2014, 2015, around the Gamergate years, that we live in a rape culture. That we live in a rape culture because we live in the patriarchy and because we live in a world where men exert all power over women. So therefore, anything bad that a man does to a woman isn't because of a situational, in the moment decision that is made because, like you say, it's made out of animalistic sexual lust, which is obviously terrible if done in that way. But it's because of the fact that he's just pre-planned it, because he knows deep down that he's able to get away with it because we live in the patriarchy. It was just another avenue for feminists to be able to undermine men, really.
Exactly. You know, if you didn't like spaghetti, would you go out and buy spaghetti at a restaurant and then sit there going, I don't like spaghetti? We don't crave, we don't purchase, we don't desire what we hate. We only desire and want and will pay for things we actually want. Now, obviously, sexual assault's completely wrong, but men don't hate women. It's an animalistic urge that some weak men allow them to overtake their common sense. Now, the next image, people also...
John, if you could go to the next image, please. Thank you.
Thank you. People also said serial killers. That's misogyny. Serial killers are always killing women. So I did a bit of research on the FBI. The FBI state 70% of all victims of serial killers are women. So that leaves 30% who are not. And 15% of all serial killers are actually women, according to the FBI. Now, this crime obviously looks like it affects women more than it affects men. And that's true. But if this was just purely misogyny, those figures would be 100% women who are being killed.
Well, that's, I think, pointing to serial killers, yeah, they're probably going to be pointing to somebody like Ted Bundy or somebody who did that, who mainly targeted women, like you say, Jack the Ripper, who murdered prostitutes. But the fact of the matter is, nobody is defending this. No man, if we lived in a misogyny culture that just hated women for no particular reason, we would be defending this, but we're not. I've never met a single person who's defended Ted Bundy and what he did. But at the same time, you could make the argument that John Wayne Gacy, he killed little boys. Yeah. And where there's no misogyny in that, just serial killers aren't a monolith, and serial killers are individuals who are all damaged, awful people who do what they do for individual different reasons. So you can't just say it's all misogyny.
Exactly. Bad things happen to both sexes. Men are twice as more likely to be murdered. Men are the vast victims of assault and knife crime.
And perpetrators as well.
Yeah. So bad things happen to both sexes, not evenly, depending on the crime we're looking at. So, bad things happen and we need to address those bad things. But just saying this is all about men hating women stops us looking at the root causes of why these crimes are happening. So a simple, low resolution answer, men hate women, and they don't. If we could have the next image, please. Another accusation is women, social media is a cesspit for women, being online. And that's true, it is a cesspit for women.
Cesspit for everyone.
Cesspit for everybody. Absolutely everybody. It's a cesspit. Now, in 2016, Demos did some research on UK posts aimed at women and found that 50% of the hatred came from other women. That's quite a nice equitable split. 50% men, 50% women were attacking women, being misogynistic. And then in 2014, 2 years before, Demos again analysed 2 million tweets and found that male public figures got several times more abuse than female public figures. So both figures are getting it, and certain people will get more, like Diane Abbott, who I'm not a fan of, gets some horrendous abuse online, which she shouldn't get. But that again doesn't transfer to all women get all the abuse online, because everybody gets abuse online, and there shouldn't be any abuse online, but it happens. It's not misogyny.
I think if somebody tried to turn it around and say there shouldn't, I understand your meaning when you say there shouldn't be any abuse online, but that seems to me, I know that you don't believe that it could happen.
That's my definition of abuse. Yeah.
It's an ideal, but it's not possible, because people wouldn't be like that. People are always going to find any opportunity to be nasty to one another, especially online, where you're so disconnected from the person that you're throwing an insult at. Because if you were to insult somebody in person, there's a chance they could just clock you up.
Yeah. So humans, on the whole, nasty creatures. So there'll always be abuse, but it'd be nice if there wasn't. But that's never going to happen because of who we are. So what do social scientists say about misogyny? Can you guess? Have you read any social science papers recently on misogyny?
Not recently.
Not recently, right. Well, let me refresh you then, in case you read these ones.
All right, thank you.
According to the work of Dunbar, Barron and Banerjee in 2016, they found that boys and men have no negative associations with female whatsoever. They could not find any negative thoughts by men towards women in general. Males reported stronger positive attitude towards females compared to their own sex. The results in females were robustly pro-female, strongly positive toward females and strongly negative towards males, which means men prefer females, women prefer females, and actively dislike men more.
Social sciences, I'm glad that the people have done the research into it. This seems like something that would be obvious to me, because men compete with each other for the attention of women. It's what we're designed to do. So obviously we're going to see other men as competition, and we're going to see women as something to be strive for.
The prize.
Yeah, the prize.
Women are the prize. Now, if someone's saying, oh, Nick, you've just picked one report there, of course you can pick a report that would say what you want it to say. So let's look at another 3 or 4. Early research by Eagley and Maldinick in 1989, and then another report they did in 2091 with a guy called Otto, showed that adult males and females both have positive attitude towards females than towards males. Another report in 2014, Rudman and Goodwin, concluded that women alone possess a cognitive mechanism that promotes own group preference. Data from Adu and Brewer, 2005, showed that unlike women, a man sees both sexes as the same in terms of being a member of the group, such as a workplace or university. Now that's really interesting, that one. A man will see a woman as part of his tribe, part of his team, part of his army. Because a man has to see that, because we're there to protect. And you want everybody on your side, where women don't necessarily see the same thing. And the final report, Vogel in 2007, you're married or a long-term partnership, so you might find...
Engaged.
So let me tell you if you think this one's true. I think it's true. Vogel found that a woman partner in a relationship has complete charge of it, and that wives behaviourally exhibit more domineering attempts and were more dominant than husbands during discussions. This work was confirmed by Coleman and Strauss in 1986, who found that women are the controlling partner in 90% of couples.
Well, certainly women have a special way of exerting influence over their men. I wouldn't say that it's so cut and dry as completely domineering. in a sense. But I did say to my missus the other day that when you're living with a woman, the woman is like an invasive species. Because any room that the woman has complete and total access to will become the woman's room, and you will just be able to exist in a corner of it. So I had to fight. I moved recently. I had to fight to be able to have my man cave. Because I said, I love you. You're amazing. I just need some space.
Yeah.
Please.
But all the relationships I've had, and I've not had that many actually, when it comes to relationships, the women do take the lead on that, because they were designed for that. You used to have the man's world and the woman's world. The man's world was outside, hunting, gathering, protecting. The woman's world was inside, taking care of the house, looking after children, and the social aspects of the family. So the house is the woman's aspect of the relationship.
Well, they have the nesting instinct, don't they?
So that's for them. And men are a lot more amenable. So we'll just go, if you want to, if it stops you going on, if it stops you what we call moaning, what you call is a discussion, if it stops the moaning discussion, I'll do that. I'll go there with you.
Just for all our female viewers, this is coming from a place of love.
Of course, it's just we're all different. Men will take on board what women want a lot more than I feel women will take on board what men want in certain aspects, because we're different. Yep, so no social scientist has found any credible evidence at all that men hate women. There is no evidence out there at all. In fact, what they have found is men prefer women more than they prefer other men, which is common sense if you're a man. You know, how many friends have you dumped just to get close to that woman? How many friends have you slandered so that girl won't like him because you like the girl?
I've not really engaged in that kind of behaviour personally.
I once, don't ever tell anyone this, I was at a party when I was at college, and I went upstairs, and this girl I fancied was upstairs. No, sorry, this girl I fancied was downstairs. And I went upstairs, and her boyfriend was upstairs kissing another woman.
Oh.
So I came downstairs and said to her, Janet, I think he wants you upstairs.
Oh, no.
And I went upstairs. They split up, and yeah, I didn't.
Were you a shoulder to cry on?
No, she cried with her friends and went home, so that didn't work.
No, damn. All that effort wasted.
I was 17 years old. I wouldn't do that now. That's despicable behaviour. Interfering in someone else's relationship. I wouldn't do it now. I was 16, 17 and horny. That's why I did it. It's just truth.
No, I respect the truth.
Why else would I do it?
I mean, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. So this image now is Jermaine Gray, who I don't really like. I don't dislike her that much, but I don't really like. She quoted in her book, The Female Eunuch, which she's famous for, published in 1970. She said in there, women have very little idea of how much men hate them. And
that sounds a lot like projection.
Exactly.
To me, that sounds like she's just reflecting her own hatred of men back.
Yeah, she's obviously a feminist, a famous feminist. Men do not hate women. But let's have a look at who, and let me ask you a series of questions, and then you can give me the answer. So let's find out who really hate women. So, who looks upon motherhood with disdain?
Who looks upon motherhood with disdain?
Yeah.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say feminists?
I would say feminists, yes.
Who tricks women into prioritising their careers and working like a dog?
Other women.
Yep. Feminists.
I would also argue large corporations as well, which don't necessarily have to be run by women, but a lot of them are doing it so that they can just maintain the certain culture that we exist in right now, and also prioritise bottom line.
And
prioritise worker drones.
Would they claim that we're a feminist corporation because we're promoting women?
They probably would, yes.
Exactly. Who lie to women that they can have it all and be everything and still be desired?
Generally speaking, women who are past their prime don't have anything and still want to make other women feel like, oh, I made all the right life choices.
Yeah, but now I'm 50 on my own with my cats.
So some would say that that's desirable. I would not.
Who lie to women that they can be obese, healthy and attractive?
Lizzo.
recently, but before that, the fat positive movement started in the 60s, 70s. Again, feminists again giving women poor advice, who lied to women that they could sleep around like men and with no negative consequences. Started in the 60s, feminists again lying to women.
With that, I would also say some men who wanted women to be easier to sleep around with. But then again, Chris Williamson always points this out. This has kind of got the Pareto distribution where it mainly impacts the top 20% of men get to sleep with all the women. The bottom 80% of men have more and more difficulty finding a consistent partner that they can stay with than ever before.
Yeah, but women sleeping around mentally destroys them. They're not the same as men. We can detach sex from emotion. Men can have sex with women they hate. Not misogyny, because I don't hate all, but you can dislike a woman and really dislike her, but you have a couple of pints, I'll sleep with you. You're very rare you'll find a woman who hates a man and would sleep with him.
No, this is all true.
Yeah, it is true. I'm not saying I've done any of that, by the way.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Who's behind the trans movement? Feminist. All comes out of gender theory, which started in women's studies and gender studies at universities. It's feminists again pushing this.
Yeah, there is also an argument to be made here as well that a lot of the things that feminists are complaining about now, with the men who are dressed as women, men in dresses encroaching in women's spaces, the legal framework to allow that sort of thing was built up by feminists, basically making it illegal for men to have single-sex spaces. Whereas before, you used to be able to have boys' clubs, used to be able to have something like the Boy Scouts. Feminists come along and go, oh, it's inequitable, it's evil, it's misogyny that women aren't allowed to get in on these men's spaces. Whereas, like you say, in the past, it was probably just blokes just like, oh, I just need 3 hours away from the wife.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, who was the first sex who started dressing like the opposite sex? It was women. Women have been dressing like men now for 50, 60 years. Did men complain about it? No, we didn't. If you want to dress like a man, dress like a man. When women started invading male-only spaces with cries of equality and feminism, and we lost the vaults in the pubs where men only, we lost men's clubs, we lost the Boy Scouts, we lost all these places where men went to be away from women so we could bond with other men. That was where young men would go to these places and find out what it's like to be a man. And if you misbehave, other men would hold you to account. But when men are around women, we're different creatures. Our conversations mellow, we're not as robust, we're not as challenging. We lost all those spaces to women.
Well, more feminized, really, aren't we?
And now this is happening to women, which it shouldn't be, but some women are complaining, but no one was complaining the last 60 years when it was happening to men.
Oh, yeah, of course they didn't.
And finally, who supports the killing of babies in the womb?
I certainly don't.
Yeah, over 250,000 UK babies are killed in the womb every year, supported by the vast majority of feminists. The biggest killers of females in the UK are called pregnant mothers because they kill 120,000 females a year.
This is awful.
Absolutely awful. So let me conclude this by saying feminism want women to be more like men because they hate being women. That's the real misogyny. Feminists feel that women are an inferior version of men, and they're not an inferior version. Women are perfect almost. Women are semi-divine. They bring life into the world. That's why men have protected women for millennia. When there's an emergency, who shouts women and children first? It's not the women. The men shout that, and men will punish other men who do not obey that. Men do not hate women. We're there to protect and provide for them because we love them and we know they're more valuable than us. Women are more valuable to society than men are because they can give birth, and all we do is impregnate women. We've got a lesser role in it. Women are more valuable. And the biggest insult anybody throws at men is that we hate them, and we don't hate women, and we need to stop putting that out there, especially to young boys and men and young men, that misogyny exists. It doesn't exist. And I'd like to think I've given a fairly good, comprehensive example there of why it doesn't exist. So if you're a feminist, we don't hate you. We love you. Not you as a feminist per se, but the woman sat next to you, we do.